Okay, in this video, I am going to give some motivation for the elasticity of demand. So imagine we have a price-demand equation. We're going to call it X equals F of P. So X is our demand, P is our price, and X is some function of P. Now, we would like to think about revenue. We can write revenue as a function of P, which is going to be X times P, which of course is F of P times P. And what we would like to know is if we increase prices, what happens to revenue? Does it go up or down? Well, to think about whether the prices, if we increase prices, does revenue go up or down? What we do is we take the derivative. So R prime of P, the derivative of revenue with respect to P is, this is a product rule, so we're going to do F prime of P times P plus F of P times 1. So that is our derivative of revenue with respect to price. So now I'm going to do something a little bit strange. I'm going to factor an F of P out of this equation. So F of P, well, there was no F of P in this first term, so that's simply F prime of P times P over F of P plus 1. Now, first off, F of P is positive, right? Demand is positive. So F of P is greater than 0, or maybe greater than or equal to 0. So if we're worried about the sign of R prime of P, this first term is always positive, so we're left with the second term, right? So we're interested in whether or not F prime of P times P over F of P is bigger than 0, right? Or less than 0 or equal to 0. If it's bigger than 0, then increasing prices is going to increase revenues. If it's less than 0, increasing prices is going to decrease revenue. If it's equal to 0, then increasing prices does nothing to revenue. So let's, F plus 1. I lost my plus 1. Okay, so let's think about this equation for a second. And we can go, let's define something. We're going to define E of P, elasticity of demand, equals, we're going to put a minus sign into this, F prime of P times P over F of P. So this is our definition of elasticity of demand. We can actually, if we think about relative rate of change, then we can look at this again and we can go, well, hang on a second. Here's this function. We've got F prime of P over F of P. That's the relative rate of change of X. So this is the relative rate of change of X. And then we've got a P in the numerator. That's like having a 1 over P in the denominator. This is our relative rate of change of P. Okay, so that's what our elasticity of demand, that's often how we're going to define it. Now, we've got this minus sign in here. So if elasticity of demand, which is this minus this quantity, which shows up here, if elasticity of demand, we assume it's bigger than 0, is less than 1, you say prices are inelastic. If E of P is less than 1, then this quantity is positive. And that means that a change in price is going to give rise to an increase in revenue. E of P equals 1, well, then this quantity up here for revenue is 0, means that when we change price, nothing happens to revenue. And E of P bigger than 1 means our quantity up here is negative, which means that when we increase prices, revenues decrease. We call that elastic.
and EFP equals 1 is called